FDA has granted emergency use authorization for the COVID-19 vaccine of U.S. biotech company Moderna.
FDA Director General Eric Domingo says that the benefits of administering the U.S.-made shot still outweighs the risks. 6 travelers from India have tested positive for COVID-19. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres said that the 6 patients arrived in the Philippines before the travel ban was imposed.
That's the hope, no, that we can prevent the entry of specific variants into the country. Yun din naman ang objective natin nung nag-restrict tayo ng ating borders for the UK variant. Kailangan lang natin talagang pag-igtingin ng border control na kahit na makapasok man sila, itong mga variants na ito, dapat handa tayo. So kailangan lang laging paalalahanan ng ating mga kababayan na kahit ano pa hong variant ang meron dito sa ating bansa at makapasok sa ating bansa, kailangan lagi po tayong protektado. So continue on doing the minimum public health standards.
The Department of Health has rolled out the first doses for the Russian-made COVID-19 Sputnik V vaccines, and the FDA has approved emergency use authorization for Moderna. But while vaccination has gained new momentum, how will testing and border control be improved? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this special edition of The Chiefs. With me online are Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star and Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5. Ami, Lucy, good evening.
Good evening. Ako, Ami, we're all suffering the loss of Ricky Lo, no? And I'm sure, lalo na yung PhilStar, no?
Nakikiramay kami siyempre sa mga naiwan niya sa kanyang mga mahal na buhay. But of course, he was family to everybody at the Philippine Star, Ami.
Yes. Oh, yeah. At saka, in a way, institution na yun eh. Si Ricky Lo, di ba? Pagdating sa entertainment. So true. Anyway, of course, the big news today is about the 6 Filipinos who came from India na nag-test positive. Let's hope they didn't bring with them the double variant, no? I think that's...
Meron pa daw hinahanap ang DOH na hindi pa natatrack. So we don't have details about those people.
So yung 100-something, na Filipinos na tinest, meron pang hindi na ano? Di ba hindi naman sila dapat pinakawalat? Di ba naka-quarantine sila for a time?
Something, baka hindi direct flight.
We'll try to fix yung audio ni Ami, but just on that particular news, to your point, Lucy, genome sequence pa yung mga samples yan. We'll find out. In the meantime, there is a travel ban now for South Asian countries that will include Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and I think Sri Lanka as well.
Yes.
Anyway, umpisa na tayo. Let's dive into our conversations. Of course, we're still talking about COVID-19 and vaccination. Let's begin tonight with former Health Secretary Esperanza Cabral. Ma'am.
Good evening,
Good evening po.
Hi. Good
Long
evening.
time no see. And we're still not seeing you.
Time.
But can you hear us, ma'am? Kamusta po ang audio?
I can hear you very well. Thank you.
Okay, I was talking to Secretary Cabral last night pa, and now she was one of the stories on the big story. I hope you don't mind, ma'am, if I open with that again. Not so much with COVID, pero gusto kong kumustahin because your former health secretary, gusto kong kumustahin yung bureaucracia, the institutions, in particular, what I asked you yesterday, FDA. How are you concerned about the FDA? Gusto ko lang kumustahin because the president takes a shot of a shot na walang EUA, merong compassionate use. In the meantime, congressmen are handing out ivermectin, notwithstanding warnings from the FDA. I mean, this is our regulator. And from Malacanang to Congress, let's say it, they're being ignored and people are walking all around them. As a former health secretary, where are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm very concerned, Robbie, because what they're doing is really weakening the institution of the Food and Drug Administration. And ito ang ating regulatory agency that protects us, makes sure that the drugs that are available to us are effective and safe. So if we make a mockery of this institution, ano pa ang magagawa nila na para maituloy nila yung function nila? So I am really very concerned.
But in the
Actually,
meantime,
ma'am,
yeah, go ahead, Lucy. Go ahead, Lucy.
actually, ma'am, the public is also confused by the decisions and actions of the FDA itself. No, on the one hand, they're being very strict, for example, about ivermectin. On the other hand, they're allowing the president to be given a vaccine that does not have yet their EUA. So who is at fault here exactly? Is it like the congressmen who are insisting on giving away ivermectin even without a certificate of use? Or is it the president who insists on taking Sinopharm vax? Sino ang dapat managot dito na hindi na rin namin alam, ma'am?
Pareho silang may responsibilidad dun sa magkaibang ginawa nila. Yung mga congressmen, palagay ko ay hindi nila dapat ginagawa yung ginagawa nila ngayon na nagdi-distribute sila ng ivermectin miski na hindi sila doktor at pinapressure nila yung Food and Drug Administration para yung Food and Drug Administration ay hindi sila hulihin. Kasi actually, yung Food and Drug Administration, meron siyang quasi-judicial powers. Actually, pwede siyang pumunta dun sa lugar kung saan namamahagi sila ng ivermectin at kumpiskahin nila yung mga gamot na yon dahil sa ito ay pinamimigay nila ng labag sa regulasyon at sa batas ng FDA.
So why aren't they doing that?
Well, I can understand that they're also under pressure. Maybe they are doing certain steps hindi pa lang natin alam at malalaman pa natin in the future. So hindi ko rin alam kung bakit hindi pa nila ginagawa ito. Bukas yata ay mamimigay uli sila. So I hope that tomorrow ay merong gagawin ang Food and Drug Administration. Maraming recourses sila Pwede silang mag-file ng TRO para hindi gawin ito. Pwede nilang kumpiskahin yung mga gamot. Maraming paraan. Kaya lang, hindi mo naman, naiintindihan ko din ang posisyon ng director ng Food and Drug Administration na under pressure siya from the lawmakers na sa kanila siya accountable para humingi ng funds para dun sa organisasyon niya. So I can understand the kind of pressure that the Food and Drug Administration Director General is under.
Yeah, but ma'am, to that point, ma'am, ano yung role ng DOH? Because we're talking about FDA as if it was literally on its own, but of course, it's part of the entire public health bureaucracy. Ano naman po dapat ang ginagampanan ng DOH?
Tama ka. Actually, attached agency ng DOH, ang Food and Drug Administration, at ang Director General ng FDA ay is accountable to the Secretary of Health. At palagay ko ngayon ay dapat mag-unite sila and be assertive about the position and about the fact that they are the regulatory agency and their functions should not be subjected to this kind of pressure.
Pero ma'am,
What about the president? Yeah, I mean,
how much can the FDA really do? Kasi ang sinasabi ng mga nagdi-distribute, saka yung actually yung mga gumagamit, including one of the deputy speakers, ginagamit lang naman daw nilang prophylaxis. Hindi naman daw actually for treatment. Karamihan ginagamit nilang prophylaxis. Not a valid argument for the
Hindi. Actually, prophylaxis is also under the purview of the Food and Drug Administration. Kunyari, magpapaprophylaxis ka for syphilis, kailangan mo pa rin na may permiso mula sa Food and Drug Administration para gumamit ng gamot for the prophylaxis of sexually transmitted diseases. So yung
Pero-
prophylaxis, hindi yun outside of the regulatory function.
Pero yung
hindi naman
off-label use, yung off-label use po,
Ano nga?
yun po ang ginagamit nila Congressman Defensor, no? At mismong si FDA Director Eric Domingo has also confirmed na basta may doktor, off-label use, prescribe niya, nothing wrong with that. So it's really confusing, no, yung mga ganun.
Yeah. Well, ganito naman yung off-label use. Kung merong isang gamot that is registered for use in the country, for example, aspirin, it is used for headaches. Diba? Yun,
Pain
it is
relief,
registered
yeah.
for use for headaches. But it is also used for the prevention of strokes.
Yeah. Clotting.
So
Blood
that's
clots.
actually an off-label use, pero ginagamit yun ng mga doktor. Pero ang premise doon ay yung aspirin ay approved for use in the country. Sa ngayon, yung ivermectin ay hindi approved for use in the country for anything outside for human use. For veterinary use meron, pero for human use wala. So hindi pwedeng gamitin yun off-label kasi hindi siya pwedeng gamitin in-label.
Okay, bakit po pinapayagan ng nagamitin for compassionate use? That's
Iba
one. And
naman
number
yun.
two, why is it listed as an essential drug in the formulary of the DOH?
Oo, it is listed as an essential drug in the formulary for certain indications. For tapeworm, for riverworm, yung mga ganyan, for river blindness. These are for different parasitic infections. It is not there in the list of essential drugs for COVID-19, hindi. And the reason why wala siyang dito sa atin is no manufacturer or no marketing company has applied to register the product in the country. Kasi naman, wala namang river blindness dito. Wala namang tinatawag na strongyloides dito na yun lang ang gamot. Maraming ibang gamot na mas effective kesa dun sa ivermectin. Kaya siguro, the manufacturers and the marketers of ivermectin chose not to register the drug in the country. So, walang certificate of product registration ang ivermectin dito sa ating bansa. Kung meron, pwede talaga yon na gamitin sa off-label use with the prescription of doctors who will be accountable for whatever consequences will occur doon sa paggamit nila sa gamot na yon off-label.
Pero meron ng grupo nga ng doctors who are citing anecdotal evidence na it works nga daw against COVID. Kaya sila, they're among the groups that are pushing for the use. Kaya
Oo, pero hindi tinatanggap kasi na ebidensya yung anecdotal testimonials at anecdotal evidence. Ang tinatanggap ng mga scientific organizations at ng Food and Drug Administrations ay yung mga tinatawag na randomized controlled clinical trials sa pagsusuri nila kung mabisa nga ba ang gamot o hindi. Hindi naman como sinabi ko na effective yung gamot ay effective na nga yun. Kailangang patunayan ko yun.
Which is why, ma'am, is why I started the conversation really not about ivermectin or not about, he said, she said, or sinong paramihan ng masaside, but really just going straight to FDA. I mean, what are the implications of all of these things when the regulator itself is going to be weakened? I mean, beyond COVID-19, ano yung implications nito as we emerge into the new normal and FDA emerges from everything? but having emerged with it, I mean, having gone through all of these episodes where they were, as we said, ignored, mocked, demonized, and so on, what is in store for, what are the implications for all the other episodes that the FDA will have to deal with in the future?
Di, yun na nga yun. Sasabihin ng iba, yung ivermectin nga, wala namang certificate of product registration. Pinabayaan ninyo at hindi nyo hinuli yung mga nagpe-prescribe nun Di, pwede na rin namin gawin yun. So, masamang position talaga yun para sa Food and Drug Administration. And I hope that the people who actually, in the executive department, yung mga cabinet secretaries, katulad ni Dr. Duque, at ang presidente mismo, ay suportahan ang Food and Drug Administration at sabihin na tumigil na kayo dyan sa ginagawa ninyo at tama ang Food and Drug Administration.
It actually makes the reading of FDA to me worse when you see the president using a vaccine that has not passed the EUA standards, no? And the fact that they were supposed to precisely investigate the smuggling of Sinopharm into the country and the use of the whole PSG, no? Which they, again, no, unfortunately, it was in effect whitewashed by a compassionate use issued to the PSG en masse. No? So that's what I mean by their very actions actually weaken the unit, no, the whole group. It's
Dagdag
not
pa natin, Lucy, dagdag pa natin dyan.
Congressman or the president, no? But FDA itself, to me, is like, ano ba talaga? Hindi na lang maintindihan. Diba? So, yeah, that's what I mean by they themselves weakening.
Dagdag pa natin dyan, Lucy, before we get the reaction of Secretary Cabral. It was Secretary Duque who administered the shot.
Exactly.
Oo nga. Well, tama kayo doon, Robbie, Lucci. Talagang the actions of the Director General themselves talagang nagwi-weaken sa position ng Food and Drug Administration. Pero ano ba yung alternative niya? Let's look at it. Either mag-resign siya sa trabaho niya or he stays there and hopes that he can mitigate kung ano man yung mga nangyayaring masama sa Food and Drug Administration. There may come a time when he will have to cross that line kasi hindi talaga pwede to keep going like this na binabastos yung ahensya mo at ikaw ay walang magawa tungkol doon.
Anyway, ma'am, lipat ako medyo, I will diverge a little, I want to get your assessment on the government's pandemic response kasi nagrereklamo na yung gobyerno. Lahat daw kinikriticize sila. Sa tingin nyo, considering all the circumstances, ano po ang tingin nyo sa response ng gobyerno natin to the COVID pandemic?
Well, kung baga sa grade sa eskwela yan, needs improvement talaga, NI.
75 ba yan?
Mga 70 siguro.
70 mas
Hindi pa,
mababa.
P. Hindi pa.
Teka, feeling ngayon,
pa yun.
by our standards, di ba doon? Ngayon kasi
Mataas
60 na yata passing
But ma'am, let's be, because...
Weakest point, ma'am. Ano yung mga weakest points niya sa tingin niyo?
Kung ano ang weak points?
Yes.
Weakest points.
Well, let's go straight to the point. I think leadership and governance is a very weak point. Doon sa building blocks for healthcare systems ng World Health Organization, ang nangunguna doon ay leadership and governance. Dapat ay tama ang information ay binibigay sa mga subordinates. Dapat ay may clear directions kung ano yung kailangan gawin. Dapat ay binibigyan ng mga tools para ma-implement kung ano yung mga directions na gusto niya. At sigit sa lahat ay kailangan ay meron siyang ibinibigay na motivation at inspiration para gawin lahat ito.
Ma'am, can we be more concrete? For example, what exactly are we not doing that we should be doing in terms of, for example, the tracing, the testing, and, well, the treatment, never mind the treatment, but kahit man lang dun sa dalawang yun, perhaps,
Okay.
or, yeah, or just something, although, well, let's include the decision-making process in whether to loosen up or to tighten. Yung mga ganun ba, what exactly are they doing wrong?
Alam naman nila kung anong dapat gawin di ba? Kasi ang dami namang guidance mula sa multilateral organizations like the World Health Organization. Ang hindi lang nagagawa ng tama is hindi malawakan ang implementasyon at hindi on time ang implementasyon. Let's take the testing. Alam naman natin na dapat in a case like ours where the positivity rate ranges from between 15 to 20% of the tests that are performed. Instead of doing 36,000 tests a day, dapat ang ginagawa natin ay mga 130,000 to 150,000 tests per day. Pero somehow, hindi natin magawa yun. Para bang naabot na natin yung level of incompetence natin. Ganun kaya yun? Parang nakakasama naman loob na hanggang doon na lang tayo, pero parang ganun ang nangyayari. At lalo na sa contact tracing.
Yes.
Ma'am, how about this? How about we frame it this way? As they said, this won't be the first time, the last time that we face probably a threat of a pandemic. There will be new viruses. And we might have, but based on our experience of COVID-19, granting na iba-iba pa rin yan given the nature of each outbreak. But based on our experience, both internationally and here, can we now draw up some basic playbook or some basic protocols na next time dapat obvious na to? Next time magkaroon ng outbreak, dapat obvious na itong step 1, itong step 2, itong step 3.
Oo. Tama. Kailangan meron na tayong ganon. Actually, even for this pandemic, dapat nagkaroon na tayo ng ganon. Kasi hindi naman iisang buwan lang itong pandemic na to 15, 16 months into the pandemic na tayo. So yung mga lessons na natutunan natin noong early 2020, dapat ay in-apply na natin yon para ngayon ay kung ano man yung pagkukulang natin nung umpisa na wala pa tayong masyadong alam, nagawa na natin ang paraan para ngayon hindi na tayo in the same boat.
But yun na nga, Ma'am, gusto ko lang malaman, kunyari, what you said, of course, we should be doing 100,000 tests a day, but we're only doing 30-something. I mean, the question is, why do you think that is? Is it a lack of funds? Is it a lack of system? Is it a lack of public anong tawag dito, openness, honesty about their condition? What exactly are we doing wrong in the testing category?
Lahat ng sinabi mo ay pwede nating sabihin factors kung bakit hanggang ngayon ay nandito tayo sa position na to. Unang-una ay kailangan tanggapin natin na meron tayong pagkukulang. Kasi pag hindi natin tinanggap yon, hindi tayo gagawa ng paraan para mag-improve. So, unang-una na yon. Susunod, hindi pwedeng mamaya sasabihin mo, ay, madali lang yan. You're doing a very good job. If you're doing a very good job pala, wala ka nang kailangan i-improve. Diba? So, ngayon, kung ma-recognize mo na, yes, you need to do some things in order to improve, ma-analyze mo na ngayon, ano ba ang kailangan gawin? And among the things na kailangan gawin is really yung chronic underinvestment sa health. Kailangan tutukan na natin yon. Kasi for the longest time, health was not a priority for our government. Not just the Duterte administration, lahat ng administrations before the Duterte administration all share in this kind of responsibility dahil hindi nila binigyan ng sapat na pondo para makakuha ng taong mahusay, para makakuha ng mga equipments at tools na magagamit para makagawa ng mahusay na infrastructure. Lahat yan, naniningil na yan sa atin ngayon.
Okay. Secretary Cabral, former Health Secretary Esperanza Cabral, maraming salamat po.
Thank you,
Maraming
ma'am.
salamat sa inyo, Lucy, Ami, at Robbie.
Napa.
Good evening.
Salamat
Good
po.
evening po.
Now, we will just need to take a break. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back, the Chiefs here on One News. We're now in the final stage of our conversation. Now joining us is Dr. Maria CONSORCIA LIM-QUIZON, Dr. Conky of the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group or NITAG. Good evening, Dr. Conky.
Good evening, Doctor.
Welcome back, Dr.
Thank you. Good evening, Lucy. Good evening, Amy. Americano. Good evening, Amy. Good evening, Robbie.
Okay.
Good evening, Pilipinas.
Dr. Conky, let's start with the vaccination effort. Some news on in terms of new EUA. May EUA na yata ang Moderna, di ba? Ang Moderna may
before that yung Gamaleya,
yung Gamaleya.
o yung Sputnik, oo, tapos ngayon yung Moderna.
Oh, so supply front as well as a strategy front. They're now saying let's concentrate kasi habang nalilimita ang resources natin, let's concentrate on urban centers, particularly Metro Manila. Your thoughts on all these latest questions and developments for the vaccination program?
Yes, of course. Actually, when the NITAG initially did all the prioritization, we started with groups which are most vulnerable. No, that's why we have the A1 who are the health workers, and then the senior citizens, and then those with comorbidities. But even as we were doing the prioritization among the groups, we already said that one big factor, if it happens, is that you concentrate on if there's going to be, at that time, remember this is about January, we said that if there will be places where there's going to be a very, very high infection rate, then certainly we will pay attention or prioritize those areas. And that happened this April. We prioritized NCR.
Tuloy-tuloy na po ba yung priority na yan? I mean, as it stands now, no, we're expecting the delivery of, actually, they're saying, no, by June, dadami na raw yan, no? Does this mean na the bulk of that supply will be for NCR Plus?
Let's see where we are in the situation pagdating na May or June. Right? If our hotspot, so to speak, is still NCR, well, by all means, you know. But that doesn't mean na hindi tayo mag-aatado para do sa ibang rehiyon natin. Okay? But everything will be considered. Secretary Galvez said that we are expecting some 4 million doses this May, and then another 10 million doses in June. So having said that, siguro naman medyo makakahinga tayo ng konti that this is a lot. Nabuksan ng konti. Mas maraki ang gripo kaysa dating papatak-patak lang.
Doc, Ongki, kaya ba natin yan? Kasi ang pinoproblema today, the news today, ang problema natin ngayon yung nakapasok na mga travelers from India na 6 daw ang positive for COVID. And now we're all waiting for the result. Baka ito yung double mutation from India. That's really devastating that country ngayon. How worried is this? Kaya ba natin yan?
The thing is, we're always overtaken by events. I heard the tail end of what Secretary Cabral said, no? Ito na mag-search sa India, ano na yan, magdadalawang linggo na. And yet, hindi natin ineksyonan na, sorry mga kaibigan namin India, pero medyo isara muna namin ang pinto namin sa inyo, ganon. So ngayon napasukan tayo, ngayon tayo magkukumahog o matatakot, hindi ba? It is a worry, but I would like to believe that our surveillance system, our contact tracing is working well, our quarantine system, and that they won't be able to spread the infection, so to speak.
Meron ba tayo?
But I mean, what about yung capacity natin? Kasi yung capacity natin there's two things, di ba? There's the capacity to...
Yeah, may nawawala nga daw, hindi nga daw matrace ng DOH na I think 5 more travelers. Paano yun?
Yun na nga kaya lang, well, who answers for that?
Yeah.
That's certainly not, it's a health issue, pero health people ba ang magbabantay nun? Or is it immigration? Or is it kung sino sangay ng gobyerno? Maitanong ko. Kasi hindi ba, usually because it's a health issue, health kagad ang tinatanong. Pero kaya nga hindi ba interagency tayo and the IATF is lahat na sangay ng gobyerno. So, sana naman lahat-lahat tayo nagtutulong and pag expected na ang DOH dapat, hindi kasi kayo nag-prevent, hindi kayo nag-ganon-ganon, dapat yung ibang sangay din sana ng gobyerno, ganon din naman sana expectations.
Okay. But doon lang po sa aspeto ng testing, particularly because we're talking about a new variant of concern. Yung capacity natin, because it's gonna be two things now, di ba? You're able to verify na may COVID and then may genome sequencing. If you take both into account, as we said, parati tayong nauunahan, but is our capacity for testing and genome sequencing going to keep us in front of these new variants?
Not yet at the moment, like being in front, but certainly, hopefully, hindi ganon kakulelat. I remember that you asked me this question the last time we talked. And I said at that time, oo nga, nagtatagal kasi ng ilang linggo, 2 linggo bago bumalik ang resulta. But ngayon naman, mas bumilis-bilis naman ng konti. In 2 or 3 days, I understand, binibigyan ng resulta yung mga nagsasubmit for genome testing.
Malaking bagay. So it's from 2 weeks, it's down to 3.
Bumilis-bilis. Baka naman isang lugar lang yung sinasabi ko, ha? Pero what I'm trying to say is it's nag-improve naman from the last time we talked na 1 linggo, 2 linggo bago dumating ang resulta.
Yung pong, I'm just curious, yung pong, kasi ang laking bagay nun, no? For 14 days down to 3 days, that's a function of having more testing centers, or what's that a function of, yung pagbilis?
More specimens and more testing centers or more people being trained to do the test. Kasi like, I'll give you an example, no? Like halimbawa yung pagtitest sa COVID, yung simpleng testing, yung ganon. Nandyan yung makina na available na pwedeng gumawa ng 200 tests all at the same time. Kaso yung pagsuswab, konti lang yung nagsuswab, hindi naman maibigay yung, you know what I mean? Hindi ma-maximize.
Alam na namin yan. Yan yung capacity capability na pinag-uusapan natin sa mga ospital. It's the same, di ba? Na kumbaga andyan yung facilities, pero it's the human resource that keeps you back. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Ma'am, pagdating naman po sa bakunahan, no, Ang estimate pa rin ng vaccine willingness ay nasa 60%. Mababa pa rin po yun. Ano? Do you see this rising as the as you know, as more and more vaccines come in?
Right,
Sabi nila
right.
baka raw magka-vaccine envy na, and in fact,
Oy,
it's
meron
starting
naman.
already.
Meron naman yun.
Ano ang reading nyo ngayon? Ano nang reading nyo ngayon?
Ganito, ha? By and large, hindi pa. Lalo na doon sa portion ng population na hindi pa nababakunahan. Like yung hindi comorbid or hindi senior. No? Parang kasing malayo pa yan sa imagination. However, judging on, at least dito sa aking probinsya, sa Tarlac, no, where they started vaccinating the senior citizens. Initially, ang bagal. Kumbaga, nilalangaw sa takilya. And then later on, after 1 week, nung malaman nila na, si kumaring ganito o kaya si Mrs. ganito, nabakunahan na, yung ganon-ganon. And then suddenly, towards itong deadline nung Friday para sa senior citizen, dagsa. Biglang tumabo na dating nilalangaw, ganon. So I guess vaccine envy works. Now, the other thing that works but is so labor-intensive is actually yung parang magpa-town hall ka sa mga grupo-grupo para ma-question and answer talaga na yung to their heart's content. Like what we did.
Ginawa natin yan, ma'am.
2 oras. Ha? Okay.
Oo, so, the chiefs.
But, pero sa experience kasi ng mga ibang experts, like if they start at 30 or 40% na vaccine hesitancy, you know, at the end of the talk, talaga nasa 70 or 80%. Yun. Ang problema ko doon, kailan natin uumpisahan yun? Pag inumpisahan natin ngayon, napapayag natin, tapos wala namang bakuna.
Yun nga eh.
Di wala na namang mangyayari, yung gano'n. So para sa akin, sana yung mga otoridad o kung sino man ang in charge, talagang sana naman pabilisin ang pagdating ng bakuna. And then, I guess it will have a life of its own pagka yung nandyan na talaga yung bakuna.
Well, apart from the bakuna, going back to capacity and capability, sa nakikita nyo ngayon mga facilities natin, sabi ni Secretary Carlito Galvez, by November daw, kung targeted vaccination, is hoping magkaka-herd immunity na in Metro Manila and the other hotspots by November. You think this is doable considering all the facilities we have, storage, vaccination centers, and personnel?
You know, nung nag-uusap-usap kami, including yung sa private sector, na nasabi nilang nag-target ng 500,000 jobs a day, no? Kung pagtutulong-tulungan at magkakaroon ng mga vaccine centers sa grassroots, yung ganun, mukhang doable. At kung magagawa natin 500,000, let's say nag-start tayo ng, ang bilang ko doon, I could be wrong, ang bilang ko doon, kung 500,000 a day, in 4 months, kuha natin yung 70 million. Kung tama yung bilang ko. And so if we start in, palagay mo ng June, July, August, September, nakarami na tayo talaga and we will have herd immunity by that time. Really, the rate limiting step talaga yung bakuna, yung dating ng bakuna.
Ma'am, speaking of vaccine envy, ngayon yung ibang mga bansa, kung ano-ano na yung mga expansion programs nila. The US, the big news now in the US is that Joe Biden wants to start vaccination
12.
for below 16, di ba?
12 to 16.
So
12
far,
to
we've been
16.
hearing about 16 and up. Now they're gonna start with 12 to 15. What are the questions and insights that you are keen to see from this rollout to below 16 years old?
First of all, even in the US, they haven't really gotten the nod, let's say from Pfizer or the other manufacturers na, sige na, pwede na talaga yung gamitin yan for the 12 to 16. So that's number one, no? Can we in fact use the available vaccines that we have for the lower age group? But the fact remains that yung unang prioritize nga natin, hindi pa natin nagawa eh. Hindi ba? So, Robbie, you're asking me what my thoughts are. I cannot even think that far.
I'm not asking if we could expand it here. I'm asking on a scientific level. parang on a I mean, what are the concerns? Bakit nga ba 16 and above? I mean, and does that open other risk factors for people younger than 16 years old? May pangamba ba tayo doon? I'm not saying, tayo, sabay-sabay na rin natin yung mga bata dito. I'm really curious on the scientific side.
Thank you for the clarification. No? So right now, with the data that we have, hindi pa natin kailangan dahil hindi naman ganun karami yung age group na yon na nagkakaroon ng infection.
Pero, okay, yeah. Actually, well, still on the vaccines, no? While we're hoping that vaccine envy will grow, on the other side of the equation, ang dami rin talaga, ma'am, na lumulutang nga na balita, and some of them legitimate, no? Ng mga adverse effects like blood clots and even deaths. For example, in the case of Johnson & Johnson, no? Yung mga ganon, ma'am, marami rin nagsasabi na parang, yan actual na yan, real world na yan, hindi na yan projection, hindi na yan publicity, hindi. Anong sagot nyo dyan? I mean, how do you put that in context without any form of dishonesty perhaps or a propaganda kind of communication? Kasi ganun na ngayon parang...
sige, dishonest ako ha. Sige, yung honestly, yung
kasi baka sabihin syempre, propaganda yan, gobyerno Ganun yung yeah.
Number one, hindi ako gobyerno ha. Hindi ako bayaran ng gobyerno.
Yes. UP to, anyway. UP. Okay, panel expert. Okay.
Sige, UST ako. Anyway.
Sorry.
Ano ba yan? Kung saan na pupunta? Okay. Nasaan na nga ba yung tanong?
Yes, yung
ano na nga ba yung tanong mo?
Yun? How do you answer? Because now,
yung mga adverse reaction.
Legit yung news legit As in, pinapost pa. Yung AstraZeneca, pinapost din yung Johnson & Johnson. I mean, how do you answer that? How do you assuage fears?
Number one, it's true. Number two, no drug or no vaccine goes out na walang, anybody can say no, 100% yan, walang adverse effect, walang side effect. Okay? Kahit na ordinaryong aspirin yan, kahit paracetamol yan, maaari magkaroon ng side effects sa hindi natin alam sa kung sino. Okay? So, number three, tama ka, there are. But let's look at the numbers. Okay? For example, at the time when Europe said that they recorded 40 deaths all over Europe, the number of people the number of doses that they have given out is 27 million. So we look at 40 katao sa loob ng 27 over 27 million. So that's about 1.5 persons per million na maaring tamaan. Yung 1 in a million chance kuminsan na hindi mo ma-explain, but it just happens. Tapos sa'yo pa dadapo. I know also that we always say that the benefit far outweighs the risk. Okay? Isusugal mo yon. Paano kung ako yung 1 out of a million na namatay?
Exactly.
Di ba? Oo. So, sige, 1 out of yung 1 million yung chance mo. Pero para sa akin na senior citizen ako, pag tinamaan ako ng COVID, yung chance ko na maging moderate or severe or mamatay is more than 35%. 1 out of 3 na mamatay. Isusugal ko yung 1 in a million sa 1 out of 3. Diba? So sa ganung paraan, pero alam ko na ang hirap-hirap intindihin, lalo pa, as I said, paano ko ikaw yung 1?
Right.
That's just, I have no answer for that. Paano kung ikaw yung 1? But the fact remains that the benefits really outweighs the risk. Susugal ka talaga.
What about if I say, for example, ako sabihin ko na lang, sige, kayo na yung 70%, ako na lang yung 30%. Herd immunity na kayo dyan. Ako doon sa 30%. Is that a valid argument?
Well, basta tumahimik ka na hindi ka pa kasi kapag sinabi mo yan, lalo na influencer ka, di lahat, sige tayo yung 30 and then you end up na 70-30 imbis
Kami
na
pala yung naging
30-70,
70.
di ba? Oo, so tumahimik ka please, influencer ka yung gano'n.
Okay.
But what I can tell you regarding that is, Lucy, hanggang kailan ka kakaba-kaba? Hindi ba? You can hope and pray for the herd immunity to kick in. But at the end of the day, konting sipon, konting ubo, talagang ang kaba mo hanggang langit. Dahil alam mo, pag tinamaan ka, baka wala kang protection kahit na ano. Hindi ba? I mean, ang talagang inilalaban natin dito sa bakuna ito ay hindi ka, you won't get the severe form. And therefore, you don't die. And yun ang inilalaban natin.
In the meantime, Doctor, in-approve na yung EUA for the Moderna vaccine. What do people need to know about this vaccine? We know it's one of the best, no? Considering yung efficacy niya, saka yung mga reports na medyo mababa yung adverse reactions. But kayo, anong masasabi niyo sa mga dito?
Well, yung efficacy kasing level niya yung Astra and then yung na sinasabing para do sa mild symptoms, nasa 90% or 91% ang protection niya. Pero again, ulitin ko, pare-pareho sila na pagdating do sa moderate and severe, will they claim that it's 100%? Siyempre, epidemiologist ako, para sa akin, there's no such thing as 100%. Yung ganun. But that is what Moderna is claiming. Now, nung nabasa ko about yung studies na ginawa, about 17,000 yung research group, yung grupo na napag-aralan, no? Again, nasa real world na tayo, na niro-roll out na yan sa milyong-milyong tao. So, maghihintay tayo kung ano talaga ang lalabas. It just so happened na yung Astra na unang naglabas. Kaya ang dami ng recorded na yung side effects. Kasi nauna siya lumabas eh. Huwag naman sana, but for all we know, magkakaroon din ng Moderna. J&J, hindi ba? Pag-roll out nila, naglabas na after a while. So kasi hindi talaga natin makikita hanggat hindi naipakalat sa general population.
Eh, ma'am, sa ano naman?
Sa US, di ba? Widely used na siya sa US ang Moderna eh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Maraming gumamit na ng Moderna.
Oo, marami. Maraming gumamit sa US ng Moderna, no? Kasi American brand yun. So, but then, if you compare yung ilan ang ginamit sa US versus yung ilan ang ginamit ng Astra sa Europe, sa London, sa lahat-lahat, mas marami ang nakagamit ng Astra at mas nauna silang naglabas na nagamit. So, which is probably why...
Yeah. Ito naman, ma'am, walang kinalaman sa epidemiology, no? Pero issue ito sa decision-making ng mga Pilipino, no? Yung moral aspect, ang sinasabi nila, gumamit daw ng aborted fetus. I mean, just how true are those reports na ginamitan daw yung Moderna and Pfizer ng mga aborted or parts of aborted fetuses? I mean, just to lay to rest whatever moral hesitations people have on this evidence.
Hundreds of millions of doses, no? Ilang kayang milyon na fetuses ang kinailangan para makagawa nitong hundreds of millions of doses na to. So, just thinking about it, anong posibilidad na fetuses nga ang ginamit para doon, no? So, kasi mRNA, so it's not, hindi, so gano'n na lang kasimple, hindi dead fetus ang ginamit as vehicle for this.
It's not possible, gano'n?
It's not possible. Ganito, it's not possible. Yun na lang masasabi ko kasi hahaba usapan, lalo akong manlilito o baka ako magkamali kasi hindi ako Basta ang sagot ko dyan hindi. Take my word for it. Alam nyo, pagdating sa bakuna, I remember even 20 or 30 years ago, basta ini-incheck, no? I remember when there was this thing about family planning and ino-offer ang IUD. And then there were people who are saying also na huwag kang magpa-inject ng IUD, abortifacient yan. Nakaka-abort yan. Or something close to our hearts is always, at saka yung pagkakatoliko natin, ang laging ginagamit para magkaroon ng anti-vaccine. Yung ganon. So, I guess you have to ask the vaccine experts to really tell, siguro i-guess nyo next time, yung vaccine experts natin to explain to you itong issue about fetuses being used as vehicles for this bakuna, for the mRNA.
Okay. Let's go back po dun sa ano. Anyway, you've spoken very authoritatively and very assertively on that point. Let's get back to the matter of supplies. Are you anticipating also, kasi binanggit yan ni Father Nick Austriaco dito. Sabi niya, beyond the science, you have to look at the supply. And what he's saying is, if you look at what's happening in the United States, going to your point about gripo na ngayon, di ba? Dati patak-patak, ngayong gripo.
Patak-patak.
Sabi niya, by the third quarter, dadagsa yan. He's anticipating an oversupply in the United States. Hopefully, tapos na yung US and with their campaign. And sabi niya, by the third quarter, dadagsa yan. And there will suddenly be this a lot of supplies coming from the United States, if not from Europe as well. Are you seeing that? Are you modeling and forecasting that as well?
Actually, we're not counting on it. Ang inaasahan lang talaga natin ngayon is kung ano yung binili natin o kung ano yung COVAX na ibibigay sa atin ng WHO. Well, of course, bakit ba hindi natin aasahan? Pero considering sa nangyayari sa India ngayon, sa India, sa Brazil, sa Argentina, yung ganon. What do you think is the probability na tayo ang uunahin magkasobra-sobra man ang bakuna nila doon sa mga bansa na yon? Di ba? I wish of course that they would give us. But ayoko ma-disappoint.
What's the speaking of India, as far as you could monitor it from here, what's the lesson learned from India? Because another ironic thing about India is it's one of the biggest vaccine manufacturers in the world. Diba? And yet, nangyari to. What's the hard lesson from India?
It's the business side of it all, right? And even China naman, nagpapamigay na Sinovac. And yet, ilang porsyento pa lang ang nababakunahan doon sa kanila. Hindi ba? Hindi ba dapat kung manufacturer sila na todo na muna nila sa population nila? So it's not only India, even China has not vaccinated a lot of its population. Now, what are the lessons learned? Okay, so yon, they manufacture it and yet it wasn't made available for them. Nasaan ang equity doon, no? And this is not the first time that it happened. You know, even during yung kasagsagan ng HIV/AIDS na napupuruhan ng Africa, tapos ginamit nila as testing areas ang Africa, and hindi naman naging available doon yung mga gamot. So, yung inequity, yun yung hard lessons learned. Now, on the epidemiology side naman, yung ganon, hindi ganon kataranta until you know, they had super spreader events. Yung religious events and then yung political events, and yun talaga ang nakaano sa kanila. Yun talaga ang nakagrabe sa kanila, and it's really, really unfortunate. If you've been in India, to any major city in India, you can appreciate how really densely populated sila. Yung talaga, ang dami-daming tao. Kung ini-imagine mo, nakikita mo Maynila na ang dami-daming tao, mas super sa kanila. So, it's not hard to imagine na kung hindi ka mag-iingat, ganun karami naging kaso sa kanila. And it's really heartbreaking.
Okay. Dr. Conky, Dr. Maria CONSORCIA LIM-QUIZON, Dr. Conky Lim.
Thank you, Doc Conky.
Regular na po yan dito, of the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group or NITAG. Thank you again, Dr. Conky.
Thank you, and good evening to
Doc.
all of you.
Thank you.
Evening.
And that will be all for this special edition of The Chiefs, but we hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippines.
And I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and we are One News.